What's up guys, my name is Ace, and we're about 3 weeks away from the console release of Delta Force on August 19th. And last weekend there was a closed tech test that I was fortunate enough to be able to join and provide some feedback on, and I made a video talking about that and sharing my feedback. And today the devs posted a blog answering a bunch of questions that people have had regarding the console version of the game and some of the improvements and changes we can expect to see from the tech test. And thankfully, I think every single point that I brought up in my video was addressed in this. So let's just dive right into this, and we're going to start this off with the first question, which is, what are the target frame rates for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X? And will there be something like a performance mode versus a quality mode? And in this, their answer is basically their target frame rate on console is 60 FPS, which is what we were experiencing during the tech test. They also said the game will run at 1440p on PlayStation 5 and Series X, and 1080p on Series S. And well, at launch, that's all we can really expect to see for consoles. They did mention their team is exploring the possibility of a performance mode with a higher frame rate down the road, so don't expect anything better than 60 FPS for launch. And like I said in my video providing feedback, 60 FPS is fine, it's perfectly playable, but at the same time, it doesn't feel great when you're coming from other games that have 120 FPS support on console, and then you're dialing it back to 60 FPS. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they manage to get a performance mode in down the road, but until then, 60 FPS is at least playable, especially if we keep crossplay off, which we will be talking about crossplay in a little bit. They did confirm how they're handling that. But on top of that, they said they are happy to confirm that an FoV slider will be added for the launch version of the game. And that was another big piece of feedback I had. I find that is actually more important than getting above 60 FPS, is having that control over your field of view. And in the tech test, we didn't have an FoV slider. We will have that at launch, so good news there. Next, for the second question, what optimizations are planned for aim assist, which currently feels weak? And their answer here is, we highly value the experience of aim assist and have received frequent feedback during this test. We're happy to share we will optimize aim assist in both modes to bring you a smoother shooting experience for the official launch. And this is one area where I didn't really have any complaints, but that's primarily because there were some deeper issues with the controller feel. So it's hard to get a feel for the aim assist when the general feel of the controller, when you're just trying to like move your character around and aim without any aim assist present even, is way off. But it seems like from the sounds of this at least, they are going to be buffing aim assist at least to some degree. I do hope they don't take this overboard. This game has a very established mouse and keyboard audience already. They were here first. I don't want to see controller players just flooding their servers with extremely strong aim assist and just suddenly making them hate the game. But it would be nice if they can find at least a somewhat reasonable middle ground. I know it's incredibly difficult to find that perfect balance. And I don't even know if you ever can find a perfect balance between controller and mouse and keyboard, since they're inherently different inputs. But with a game like this, where they already established their mouse and keyboard audience first, I think it's reasonable to lean a little bit more in their direction rather than the direction of controller players. In either case, for the next question, this was my #1 piece of feedback, my #1 complaint with the tech test. The question is, the movement of operators with a controller feels stiff. What optimizations will be made in this regard? Can we expect the addition of analog input? Because, as I pointed out in that video, the movement was binary. Basically, if you wanted to move left or right, you were either moving at full speed or not moving at all, just like you would be with a mouse and keyboard. And that feels terrible with a controller, where usually you have linear input, where if you move the stick a little bit, your character will move very slowly, whereas if you move it a lot, they will move faster. And that's a necessary part of controller play in an FPS game, and having that ability to make those fine left stick adjustments to your aim. And their answer here is, in the official launch versions, players can linearly control their movement speed with the left stick in Warfare, and you can walk in silent mode by moving left and right, which will optimize the movement experience to some extent. We will continue to optimize movement speed on controller in the future, so stay tuned. We also plan to fully support it in a future update. Partial support will be available by the time the game launches on console. So that's good news. They addressed this. They're going to have at least a partial fix for launch, which I'm curious to get my hands on at least and see how it feels, and to see what, if any, future optimizations are needed for that. Also, I was a little bit confused here about them mentioning specifically Warfare, which is like the Battlefield clone mode, rather than Operations, which is their extraction mode. So it seems like the extraction mode may not have this improvement to controller support, and the movement might still be really clunky. I don't know though, perhaps they didn't even have this issue in the first place during the tech test. I didn't play Operations in the tech test. I'm primarily interested in Warfare. But I am just glad to see that they have acknowledged this, because if they didn't, this was going to be a complete non-starter for me. I wouldn't even bother playing controller without this adjustment. But then for the next one, they were asked what optimizations will be made to the controller key bindings when it's officially launched. It's a bit too similar to the keyboard and mouse settings. Will controller mapping be supported? And they mentioned in the tech test, it already provides controller mapping functions where players can freely bind single keys and combine keys. However, it's not recommended to use extreme binding methods, and they'll continue to optimize key binding logic in future updates to ensure consistent performance under various binding conditions. After that, they were asked about managing the inventory with a controller and how it feels tough, and will there be any optimizations in this regard? And they said, yes, adjustments are already underway. We fully understand the challenges of inventory management on controller. We are actively developing new convenient features, optimizing navigation and shortcut keys to improve operational fluency. So that one's going to primarily come into play in the operations mode or the extraction mode, and it's good to see that they're going to be improving that. Then they were asked, will the interaction of controller key bindings be optimized, such as the interaction method for opening containers? And they said the official launch version will change the long press to short press for interaction. In future updates, we will continue to optimize key bindings for interaction, allowing players to choose the interaction method that suits them. Then after that, we have a question regarding bots. And this says, there were too many bots encountered in the test. What will the arrangement be for bots in the official launch? And their answer is, to improve the matching experience, we added bots in the technical test version last week. However, when the console version is officially launched, you don't need to worry about this. Most of your opponents and teammates in matches will be real players, bringing you the excitement of intense confrontations. And that's good news. I'm not surprised at all to see this. It was a bit of a complaint that I had in the tech test. I wanted to see how things played against real players, and yet I could only ever find bots. So I'm glad to see that's just a tech test thing. Then they were asked, are there any plans for more beta tests before the official launch? And it was a bit of a long-winded answer to basically say no, they're not planning any more beta tests leading up to the launch of the game, which is honestly totally fine. We're only 3 weeks away from the launch of the game, so how much could they really accomplish from another beta anyway? Then they were asked, will more localized language options be added, such as Japanese, Russian, Spanish, German, French, etc.? And they mentioned the official launch version will support English, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Russian, Turkish, Portuguese, French, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, German, and Arabic. So that's great to hear for players around the world, and even better for players around the world. The next question was, will there be servers set up in other regions, such as Africa, Middle East, etc.? And they said, like the PC and mobile versions, we have servers set up all over the world, hoping to bring a stable gaming experience to global players, including in Africa and the Middle East. And that's great news for people in those regions, because those regions are often just totally ignored by many games out there. I hear from people in the Call of Duty audience quite frequently that are in the Middle East or Africa sometimes, and it seems they just have constant issues with sometimes having servers, but then having them taken away, or just never having a server at all for the entire life cycle of a game. And obviously that sounds really frustrating for the people that just want to play the game and have a reasonable connection experience. Now the next question is a pretty big one here. Will there be crossplay only between PlayStation and Xbox, so console only crossplay? And their answer is, we want to deliver a truly seamless cross-platform experience for players so they can effortlessly sync their progression between all platforms. As for crossplay, console players can choose to play with or against PC players, or they can choose to stay in a console-exclusive queue. So essentially, it sounds like yes, there will be console-only crossplay, so you can set it where it's Xbox and PlayStation players playing together without having to worry about PC players at all. And this is excellent news, especially for the operations mode, which every time I look into this, people are always saying it's infested with cheaters, and with it being a single life extraction mode, running into somebody with wall hacks and aimbots can really ruin your day. So having the ability to go console only is massive news. And I think this mode now has a really big chance of excelling on console, because we shouldn't have to worry at least about those particular forms of cheating. And I can't think of any other extraction shooter on console right now that's as good as the extraction mode is on Delta Force. I'm not particularly interested in them myself, but I know a lot of people are, and from what I've seen, this is going to be the best we have access to on console. Now, going off of this, there was no mention of PC players being able to do the same. Can PC players turn off crossplay so they can only play with other PC players, and therefore at least maximize their odds of playing against other mouse and keyboard players if that's what they choose? So that is still a question that's up in the air at this point. We don't know how that's going to be handled, but at the very least, we will have the ability to have console-only crossplay, and that's great news for console players at least. Now, circling back a little bit and speaking about the cheating situation, the next question is, for FPS players, anti-cheat measures are crucial, especially in the console version. There is extra concern about the converter behavior using a device such as a mouse for an unfair advantage. What measures will Delta Force take to deal with this? So this is talking about things like Zims, probably Cronus lumped in there as well. And they mentioned, at present, our security team has taken targeted measures against cheating in a controller and console scenarios. We will also continue to invest in game security and anti-cheating to create a fair and safe gaming environment for players from all platforms. And I mean, that's a pretty PR-like response. Obviously, I think time will tell on this to see how effective their anti-cheat is, but it is good to see they're at least acknowledging it. They are aware that this is an issue with other FPS games, and they're going to be taking measures at least to combat that. And then finally, the last question is there a difference in server tick rate between PC and consoles? And what measures has the development team taken to allow all players to compete in a fair environment? And no surprise here, the tick rate is consistent between PC and console, and they have made multiple rounds of adjustments and tests on the aiming experience of controller to strive for a balanced combat experience. Console players can also choose whether to match with players from other platforms, giving the choice to the players as we hoped. And there we go, that's gonna wrap it up for this Q&A. At least on paper, everything is sounding excellent here. They answered literally every single one of the concerns that I had leading up to this game after playing the tech tests. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee that everything's going to be super smooth and feel great at launch. Time will have to tell on that. We'll have to get our hands on it. But the fact that they're at least acknowledging and communicating when it comes to this is a good sign leading into the console release of the game. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts, and this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First off, what do you guys think about this blog that we got and all of the answers that we got here? And second, are you looking forward to and planning on playing the console release of this game? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.